Hi ladybugs, how we doing? So I wanted to do things other than reborns on my channel. So today we're making short ribs. Now short ribs are a good option for dinner because you can get a lot of meat off them. As you can see, these short ribs are really well marbled with fat, which gives them flavor. And it's a dinner that can be reheated and the meat doesn't get dry and tough, which is awesome. So what I've done so far is I got the short ribs out, I rinsed them, patted them dry, and seasoned the top with salt and pepper. And you can tell where the top is because of where the bone is. This is the bone. See the bone right here? So this is the top because you have, the bone is always right at the base, right there. So got them all arranged, got them seasoned with salt and pepper. I put a cup of flour into a bowl. And now we're going to season the flour because we have to dredge them in flour. And then I've added about 2.5 tablespoons of butter and 2 tablespoons of oil to a Dutch oven. I don't measure anything. I just kind of do it. I always say do it till it feels good. I'm weird like that. So I'm adding onion powder, garlic powder, some cumin to my flour. And then I really like this on my short ribs. It's barbecue seasoning, so we're going to add that in there. It already smells so good. So now we're going to grab a fork. We're going to stir up our flour mixture to make sure that the herbs and seasonings get all mixed in with the flour. And then the last thing we're going to do is put a little bit of salt in our flour, just so that it gives it, meat without salt is bland. You want some salt in your meat. So there we go. You can see the flour's off color because of the seasoning. We're going to add a little bit of salt to our flour just to... And then we're going to mix that in. Make sure that gets all mixed up. Okay, now we've gotten our... So I'll show you the pan here. We've gotten some butter and some oil, olive oil in the pan. This is a Dutch oven. The great thing about a Dutch oven is that it can go from the stovetop to the oven to the dishwasher. Although I don't put my Dutch oven in a dishwasher, you could if you wanted to. We're going to set that over medium-high heat. And we're going to dredge these in flour, all sides, because that's what's going to thicken our gravy, our broth, turn our broth into gravy when it's cooking. So there we go. That's what we want to do. We want to get them all nice and coated with flour. And the seasoned flour is better. And then we're going to saute them on all sides. Then we're going to remove the meat, let it rest for a few minutes while we cook onions and garlic. So 1 onion sliced and some garlic, probably about, I would say, 4 cloves maybe, depending on how much you like garlic. So after we cook these on all sides, get them seared. Sorry, not sauteed, seared. Then we're going to take the meat out, let it rest on a plate or on a cutting board, wherever you want it to rest, while we cook the onion and the garlic. So we're going to have about 4 cloves of garlic and 1 onion sliced up, thin sliced. We're going to saute those. Then we're going to take them out. Now this next step is optional. I love mushrooms, so I'm going to saute some mushrooms. After I saute the onion and garlic, I'm going to remove that because you don't want to overcook things. So you always remove them when you have more to cook. And then we're going to cook the mushrooms, saute them, get them nice and cooked. And then we're going to add fingerling potatoes, which are the really small potatoes, kind of oval shaped, to the Dutch oven. We're not going to cook them, like sear them or anything. We're just going to add them to the Dutch oven along with the broth and the meat back in, and the onions and the mushrooms. I'm going to put a can of cut tomatoes in there along with a little bit of mustard and some wine. So yeah, once you get it all in there, you want the liquid to cover the meat and the vegetables. You can add some carrots and celery, whatever you'd like to add to it. So now you can see, let me just rinse my hands off. All right. I'll show you the meat. You can see it's all nice and coated. So now we're going to bring this over. Sorry, I got to put you guys down first. And I can hear the butter sizzling. So now we're going to bring this over here, the meat. And we have a pair of tongs right here. Here's the tongs. So we're going to take these and we're going to put them in there. We're going to give them a good sear. These are not the right tongs for this. Hold on. I'm going to find my other tongs. Where are my other tongs? Here's a pair of tongs. And here's a pair. Okay. All right, so now we're going to sear these up. Get a nice, you want high heat to get a nice sear on your meat. We're going to grab a platter to put the meat on after it's seared so it can rest for a few minutes. Here's a platter. So basically, after you add in the liquid, where we left off before, you're then going to take the pot and stick it in the oven at 325, and it should cook all afternoon. Like right now, it's 10 after 11, so we'll probably eat around 5. You could even eat as late as 6. And you just want it to cook that whole time, and it'll be fall off the bone tender. It'll be so tasty. Your potatoes will be cooked. It'll be good. The other way you could do it, if you didn't want to add the potatoes to the food, is you could make a mashed potato later, and pour the short ribs and the onions, that whole mixture over the mashed potatoes, which is really good too. I've done it that way as well. But today I think I'm just going to add in well, it depends. We have quite a lot of meat here. We'll have to see how it all fits in the Dutch oven. So you want to sear these on all sides to cook that flour through. This one's thin enough that I have to hold it up because it doesn't want to stay up. There we go. So you want to get a nice caramelization on your meat. Searing it helps hold in the juices, so while it's cooking, it won't dry out. Even though it's cooking in liquid, you can still get dry meat internally if all the moisture seeps out of the meat. So you don't want that. So we're gonna get the next batch in. I would put mine in bone first, so the bone side down first, and then flip it over to the meat side. And then I do the sides, the sides of the meat. So we got 8 pieces of meat here, which is good because that gives us a bone for each dog. We have 7 dogs, so. And I'll show you what we're doing now. We are searing the meat in the butter and oil mixture. The other thing is that you get seasoning into your butter oil, and we're going to leave that butter and oil in the pan when we add the liquid, the wine and the broth and stuff. And so that will season that up as well. It's going to be really tasty. And this gets fall off the bone good. So we're going to set our oven. You might have a different oven, but we're going to set our oven to 325. I always check the oven to make sure nobody left a pan in the oven. And you want to cook it at, it can be anywhere from 300 to 325, whatever you prefer. I prefer 325. I think that's a great slow cooking temperature. So we're going to get this all cooked up. While we're waiting for that, we can get the onion. I need another cutting board because that cutting board is occupied at the moment. We need to go get an onion. We keep our onions in the laundry room, so we have to go out to the laundry room here and get an onion. There we go. And here's the potatoes we're going to use, these little fingerling potatoes. So we're going to use those. And we might throw in some carrots and some celery. We'll see. Hey, what are we barking about? The easiest way to cut onions is to cut either end off and then slice straight down the side. Not to cut onions, to peel onions. I hope I said peel. But I think I might have said cut. Anyway, the easiest way to peel your onion and then peel off the top layer of onion. Like this, see? And it just comes off with the skin in one piece. Hold on. Trying to get it. There we go. And then we just throw all this away. And then you can just cut that down the center. And if you're slicing them, which is what we're doing today, then you just slice them along the, against the grain. Let's go check our meat because we don't want it to burn. We don't want it to burn. All right, there, that's a nice sear. So I'll move that to the, I'm gonna move that to the, we might have to take this oil and butter out before we do the, because it is getting a little gunky. So you might have to wash the pan before we start, but we can continue cooking, browning the meat in it. So now we're gonna cut this one up. And then we'll put these in a bowl. We'll get our garlic cut up. I do have in the fridge pre-cut garlic, pre-chopped garlic, but I'm not a huge fan of the pre-chopped garlic. I don't think it smells as good. And I don't think it puts as much flavor into the food as fresh chopped garlic. So I personally like to fresh cut my garlic, although we do own pre-cut garlic. It's just not my favorite. I don't think it's as flavorful. I don't think it's as doesn't have as good an aroma. So yeah, I prefer to pre-cut my garlic, or not pre-cut, fresh cut my garlic. Sorry, my brain is not functioning today. And this bag only has a few cloves in it, like maybe 6, so I'm going to go ahead and use them all, even though I said probably 4 cloves would be enough. I'm a big garlic fan, so I don't know how you guys peel your garlic. I just lay it down, give it a smash. So if your oil and butter gets a little black from the seasoning after you season the meat, you can always rinse that out and add in some new oil and butter to do your onions and stuff. You don't want to use burned oil. It's hard when you're searing meat because then you get the meat fat, and the meat fat often will cause it to blacken. So yeah, don't worry about ever wanting to change your oil or butter. It's not a big deal. I do it sometimes. I'm not perfect. Sometimes I burn things. Actually, quite often I burn things. So, all right, now let's get that out of there, off the knife there, and now we'll chop this. Now, when I chop my garlic, let me see if I can show you. I just set my knife down and put my the heel of my hand on the end of the blade, and then I just lift and drop, lift and drop. Then I get it all back together and go the other way. You can see how I'm lifting the handle side of the blade, but the other side is staying flat and even and consistent. So there we go. We're going to add this in with the onion. Nice chopped garlic, nice fresh chopped garlic. All right. I'm going to turn the fan on for a minute. All right, so I'll do a second part 2 video once the meat is seared, so you don't have to sit here and watch me sear all the meat. And then I'll come back and I'll show you the vegetable part, okay? Have a good day, guys. Bye.